All right, everyone, the next topic is Commercial Payments 2.0, what is changing and why it matters. Moderated by, I would request the moderator to join on the stage, Mr. Navin Mistry, Country Director, India and MEA at Tazapay. Let's have a huge round of applause for Mr. Navin Mistry. And now I would request the speakers to join on the stage, Mr. Akshat Mathur, Head of Account Management, India at Unlimit. Let's have a huge round of applause. Up next, Ms. Bhakti Zaveri, Director at Aurionpro Payment Solutions. Up next, Ms. Shruti Gupta, Head of CMS, India and South Asia at Visa. Let's have a huge round of applause. And I would request Mr. Navin Mistry to kindly begin the session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to attend this, Commercial Payment 2.0. What has changed and how does it matter? Just to give a context, over decades we have seen how the sort of money movement has sort of helped businesses, right from a manual process to a digital-first economy, which is led by and driven by transparency, trust, and speed. With this session today, we will explore, with the expert panelists here, in terms of how the, convergence of AI has sort of helped, including the real-time rails, including the smart merchant solutions, how these are helping the large enterprises and SMBs in India. So with me, we have an expert panelist from the networks, from the processor, and from the enterprise specialist. So I hope this session sort of, is knowledgeable, and we share some of the insights, from the experts over here. So I'll quickly introduce, the panelist, reintroduce the panelist over here. With me is Akshat Mathur, is the head of account management for India Unlimit. Then we have Ms. Bhakti Zaveri, she's director for Aurionpro project. And we have Shruti Gupta, head of commercial payments, India and Southeast Asia. So with this, we begin our first question. So let me ask, sort of a Shruti to you question. How you've been into Visa since, almost 2 years now. How do you see, Visa is enabling faster and smarter B2B payments and experience beyond traditional cards? So if you can just give that insights over there.
Thanks, Naveen. So I think most of us have known Visa for being a cards company, right? It was consumer, and then we moved into the commercial cards payment. But Visa has expanded much beyond that. And I think the way we look at it is also the way we have done our last few acquisitions. I think we have, as a Visa company, have always invested in skill sets, which means if you look at even our last few acquisitions, whether it's been CyberSource, or I would say Currency Cloud, they have been on something which is non-card rails. They have been on network agnostic. So it is not that what we want to just do only with cards, but what we want to do, what is going to create an impact for our clients. So that's the first thing from a Visa perspective. The second is that I think over the years, the biggest trend that is coming out is unlocking data. Because unlocking data is what is making payments intelligent. So there's a huge step towards unlocking data. For example, just to give you an example, changing a form factor from a plastic, which is a hard card, into a virtual. The minute you do that, you bring in controls, you bring in compliances, you make it more secure. So now you can, for example, offer a single-use tokenized credential, which is compliant as per your approval policy. It can be used, it can be auto-reconciled, and all this is very seamless, secure, and compliant, right? And very, very convenient to use. So a lot of things have been done from those directions, and as I mentioned, our last few acquisitions have been on all non-traditional methods, right? We've done acquisitions on Currency Cloud, which is a platform which is used by exporters to collect their receivables from outside. And that's completely a non-card. This is done by a non-card company that we acquired. We also, as a matter of fact, launched our first Visa Direct, which is a platform for cross-border outward at the GFF with Yes Bank. That's the first for the country, the first for South Asia, where we got the RBI approval. These are all innovations absolutely, again, I would say away from the traditional feed and the non-cards. So Visa, I think innovation has been very, very core to us. It's in our DNA. We will continue to invest with them. And whatever is that we require to get in those additional capabilities to serve our clients, we will continue to do so.
Great. I mean, that's great to hear how networks sort of and issuers are developing those things. That leads to me a question to Akshat. From a global payment processor perspective, what are the infrastructure shift are you witnessing? And from a compliant commercial transactions in India, so if you can just give a couple of views on that.
Thanks, Navin. So for a global processor, navigating the market of India could be simple yet complex because it's not a template that you can replicate from international markets to India because the regulators here have definitions for acquirers, issuers, payment gateways, payment aggregators, which has to be complied by. So I think the central core of it should be the data localization. That is a theme which in India, we need to keep everything within the borders of India. That's surely the core of it. And secondly, matching the integration with innovation is the key, where you could not only be relevant, but also be competitive in the market, which is already overcrowded with payment processors. Just to give an example, we have seen the cycles of innovation happening in UPI settlements, from going from T+2 to T+1 to T+0 one-time settlement to now coming to on-demand settlements, which significantly enhances the cash flows for companies and opens so many more verticals in the spaces. So such innovations will, of course, be the key driving factor, but the major trend that we are seeing in terms of the infra shift for the payment aggregators is driven by the infra shift by the merchants, where they're demanding the cross-border access at ease. So I think gone are the days when we used to talk about the legacy definitions of a comprehensive payment stack, because nowadays the definition of a comprehensive payment stack for a merchant is not limited to one country or even one continent or even one payment currency. They're looking for far beyond that. They're looking for one integration that can unlock any country for them at ease so that they can have a quick flavor of that and see if that is a scalable market for them. I think additionally we have seen, and this is not only a trend that we are observing in the enterprises in India who already have a big bite of the market and a significant market share, or the exporters in India, we are even seeing this trend across many startups and SMBs in India who are designing the product.
And are you seeing this in a geographically also equal spread like US, UK, other markets as well?
Absolutely. So I still feel the significant concentration because of the exporters, I think trade freedom is mainly with the US and Australian market. But now we are not only limiting these merchant bases to exporters only. We are talking about ride-hailing companies who see a gap in Brazilian market. They would not be launching the product without having PICE as a payment method, which is just a twin sibling of UPI. Like just imagine, you would not launch a product with a payment that would not accept UPI in India. That's exactly the scenario in global markets. So merchants are getting exposure of that, and they are very intrigued by the propositions, and which is also causing the infra shifts in the payment aggregators as well.
You touch upon a very good point in terms of, let's say, how innovation is sort of driving it, right? And we have seen in fintech, right from a smart processes to a bots, and now the convergence of AI. So, Bhakti, that sort of, let's say, leads to a question to you. How are you seeing AI and automation transforming corporate treasury and cash management function? That's one of the biggest opportunity area.
Right. So AI, I think, has been the buzzword, and it's, we've seen through GFF, we've seen through the launch of ChatGPT, where everybody wants to do AI with everything. I think at Aurionpro, what we're trying to do is solve for use cases rather than having an overarching helper. So we look at AI in three aspects. One would be the agentic AI, which would be nudges to pre-fill certain transaction values depending on earlier history. identifying patterns in transactions that the corporates have done over a period of time. So really trying to solve for a use case, becoming reminders in a fashion, rather than saying that it be just a help that it's doing. The second area where we think AI can add a lot of value is the KYC flows that are going through. So typically when you were doing any sort of onboarding, you are going through a checklist of sort. Where we bring in our corporate suits are more of a form factor where you, depending on one document you upload, it tells you what is the next one required, rather than saying, oh, you need to do 20 documents. Right, so all the way from fraud check to connecting to various databases to do the validation. So those use cases tend to be of far bigger operational efficiency than really saying, I'll solve at 30,000 feet. And the last one where we try to really help, and I think Shruti touched on it a little bit, is on forecasting, right? Because of how payments is becoming now, not just saying, okay, I'm going to accept payments, but adding the intelligence of embedded finance of payments. It really talks about what are going to be my accounts receivables, what's going to be my payables, what's going to be my cash flow, and how do we help organizations plan for that in the context of real-time payments. So I think those are the value adds that we at Aurionpro are looking at, and that's the approach we've taken to the market when you talk about tangible benefits to the customers.
That's a great point. So some processes to, let's say, AI to the compliant, you spoke about to the volumes and various methods you mentioned. One of the interesting point is on the security, right? And in that case, Shruti, how do you see technologies changing the balance between security, efficiency, and client experience in commercial payment as per you? And the other question is, how does the AI blockchain and tokenizations are reshaping a payment landscape? If you can just give a
No, I think that's a great question and very, very relevant in today's scenario. So at Visa, we always used to say, be the best way to pay and be paid. But now we've changed that. We say also be the most safest way to pay and be paid, right? Our clients trust us, and we want to be that trusted partner. So that's always been the goal from our side, that how do we continue to keep our image as a trusted partner. And just to give you some let me share some numbers with you, because anybody in this room who likes big data, this is big data. It cannot get better than this. We move about 300 billion transactions through our network, which is $15 trillion in terms of volumes. So it's huge, massive. From the last time I think I read, it was about 60,000 transactions move through VisaNet every second. That's the number of transactions we handle. And every time a transaction moves through the VisaNet, it goes through 500 layers of security. Right? So that's the kind of security we want to give. That's the kind of trust we want to give to our clients. All this obviously we have invested a lot in AI. We have invested billions of dollars in the last 10 years on AI. And the outcome is fantastic. Last year, this is all public data, we saved about $40 billion of volumes of frauds through our system. So that's the data that we are talking about. It's big data, huge amount of transactions, but these are secure, compliant, and we continue to invest in this. We also have tools now. We have tools in the market which our financial institution and issuers are very familiar with, which we call as VRM. These are essentially Visa verified scores. And earlier we used to offer it only for Visa transactions. But today we are network agnostic. That means you can use our AI fraud detection tools, which are in the form of scores, across networks, in your systems that will help you avoid fraud. So we will continue to invest. We will continue to remain committed. Innovation, as I said, is DNA for us. And how we can make everything more compliant, secure, we will continue to be committed on that.
Yeah, sure. So let's say any innovations, any new processes we build, whether it's smart or automation, at the end of the day, let's say we have to see what's the business impact, right? And that's sort of, let's say, question for Bhakti. How do you see this evolution in tech, in payments, leads to deliverable, tangible business values for your client? Do you see client really appreciates this value, or he's just looking at price in India, right?
So, yeah, you're right. India is very price sensitive. But I think, a lot of value add, So if I take a step back, right, traditionally payments have been batch settlements, right, end of day vendor settlements on the commercial side. On the retail, I mean, obviously the scale has been a lot different. So to go to a corporate and be like, you're now going to be able to do real-time settlements, that further we are seeing stablecoin, we are seeing CBDC. So all of that is really advancing the way corporates are able to make payments. There has been a lot of push of cross-border payments and the ease of cross-border payments for corporates now. So tech keeps evolving. The volume and value that you see on the corporate side is a lot more. Creating a payment embedded framework, like a middle level, really helps in keeping core banking functionalities on one side and value-added services on the other. And it really helps in, three, I think, aspects. One would be embedded finance, so you connect to ERP solutions, connect to other payment processors to give corporates the ease to make payments with, any capability that they are comfortable using. The second is more, I would say, comfort to the CIOs, CROs, and the CX's level, because they have very clear visibility now into the data because of the entire amalgamation of this middleware, the payment middleware. And the third would just be availability, security, able to do it anytime, any process, right? Ease of access from a UI, UX point of view. So all of these become very tangible for a corporate to be able to make it easier. Banks have now adopted a lot of it and provided as a value add for their customers. So that makes the journey for even the end corporate very seamless rather than going directly to corporates. So that really helps push the boundaries of what technology can do, and the space keeps evolving, to build on further.
No, perfect. And how do you see sort of Akshat, how do you see Unlimit sort of simplifying the cross-border, and what are the values which you have built around it, which can help merchants scale?
So I think the trends are moving in tandem with the requirements of our merchants, and the cross-border space is it's a huge area and avenue for people to expand in multiple directions and dimensions. And the core of any D2C brand or any SaaS-based company who want to expand to any local market internationally want to keep the customer experience as a center point of it, and want to be seen as a local provider, as a local service provider in those markets. And for that, having a local currency as an option to pay, or enabling local methods which are beyond card methods in those which are prominent in those markets is what they're exploring. But when it comes to the money movement and expatriating funds from those markets, and some of the most complex markets, which are quite volatile in nature, is becoming a core pain point to address. And how some of the payment aggregators like Unlimit are innovating this is by creating a global digital unified treasury. Where essentially we are not letting the owners parked with the merchant to create a complex network of bank accounts for them to get the settlements, but replacing and substituting that by a unified contract and a unified process of crediting. And also the merchants' infrastructure is quite supportive in that way, where they're creating and exploring multiple solutions on the multi-currency side globally. It's only logical for them to have like-to-like currency, settlements for several use cases, or maybe having the comfort of remitting back the money at their ease and convenience. So those are some of the use cases that we have seen in the global money movements.
All right. So I'll ask a couple of questions, right? One is, let's say, we just spoke about India's little price-sensitive market, right, specifically. And the FX is always the unknown sort of, let's say, cost to the merchants, right? And not many fintechs sort of, let's say, clearly show what's the FX, So from your experiences, what are the sort of solutions to that for the merchants, right? Or anything which you have, any recommendation, if you can, any of you can share on that?
I think I can go first. So I think in terms of the global money collection, I think we all spoke about this in our talks, the trust becomes a core component, that if we are doing global collections, the expatriations happen on time, the settlements work like a clockwork, the FX is quite transparent. And for that, I think there are some solutions in terms of real-time settlements and not waiting for the settlements after, let's say, 7 days where the markets would have moved. And that would probably give, have a liquidity lock in that case. So real-time settlements is one solution. Being quite transparent in the local expatriation compliances is also a pain point a lot of merchants have mentioned, which is quite different for each market. If it's about local currency settlement, it's quite different than expatriating funds to another country, and there are many taxation and other liabilities that could be imposed, so they expect the company, the aggregators, to take care of that. I think it's a matter of keeping the customers' demands and expectation at the center of it, and being quite transparent in terms of adapting to what they're requesting, whether it's multi-currency, whether it's a unified currency with a transparent and real-time effects.
Yeah. And Shruti, from your perspective, traditionally, let's say the export-import remittance is either through SWIFT banks, right, or traditionally through cards, right? The global money movement is a very new subject, so to call, in India, right? So, if you can just give, some insight on that, and what are some of the use cases, if you can share, that will be probably, if there are any businesses here, it can be great, helpful to them.
So Navin, obviously, for decades, most of the Indian, we only had SWIFT and corresponding banking network for doing any outward or inward, right? Having said which, as I mentioned, we have now launched Visa Direct, which is our Visa rail, which is used for doing outward. This is a B2B, which means that this is available for banks to use it. And we want to thank, as a matter of fact, the regulator RBI here, because they've been extremely supportive in giving us our first approval for Yes Bank, which we launched at the GFF on day 1. So that's the first bank going live. So now they will be, which means that consumers, companies, businesses will be able to do an outward using Visa Direct, which is the Visa rail. Why would they do that? Because it's faster. We claim to be more faster than your traditional methods. It's cheaper. It's more transparent. And coming back to the question that you asked earlier, so while we do not control the end cost, but we know what we are offering as an impact to the client, right? Here you will exactly know what is my end-to-end, what is the full value I will receive. So if you remember, an exporter, when is either importing or exporting, right, the thing always used to be, will I get my full money or not, yeah, right? There is always those correspondent banking charges that gets deducted, and I think it's a black hole. Nobody knows how much will get deducted. What Visa Direct offers is a full value payment. That's what it does, right? So the charges, whatever is it, is extremely transparent. So that's the step in the right direction. We also have many more products globally, which is for trade payments, which is B2B Connect. We're still working with the regulator to get the approvals done, but I think there is much more action in that space.
Yeah, that makes sense. Before I open up, questions to the audience, Bhakti, from your perspective, what is the one or two things which is still unsolved in commercial payments, right? You've been dealing with a lot of enterprises.
Yeah, I think, access to credit, I think, becomes a lot more valuable when it comes to commercial payments, whether it is through the ULI that RBI has launched, or whether it is through, other means where it's easy for MSMEs to really get access to credit. For them, then it becomes an unlocking that happens on the commercial payment space, which they've never been a part of. So I think if we can figure out a way, and there are a lot of heads put together to solve that, but if the more easier, I think yesterday Mr. Nilekani mentioned that the aim of the ULI is basically to use UPI transactions to give credit to a vegetable vendor in 10 minutes, right? And I think that's the piece we ought to solve to make commercial payments scale.
Yeah. We have just sort of a couple of minutes. Any questions from the audience to the panelists? You may not get often a chance to question them or meet them. And anyone question? Yes, sir. Right at the back.
This is for Visa Direct. Is it instant?
It is much faster depending on the corridor. So a Visa Direct, essentially, you're right, has an instant feature attached to it, which is what we say because it's a real time. But depending on which corridor that you're using, it'll it'll depend on that. So, right? So there are some rails because we have to do the last mile connectivity. That's why I did not use the word instant when I was talking about it. But for example, if I were to use a Visa Direct for my domestic, because it's more in control, you don't have, your end mile is more connected, it will be an instant. So as a matter of fact, on Visa Direct, for the commercial payments, we have just got an approval for the Indian market, which is to do our faster refunds, which is essentially if you were to tomorrow buy on Amazon and ask for a refund for the goods that you want to return, it would take you typically 4 to 5 days to get back the credit on your credit card, right? With Visa Direct, you will get an instant credit back. That's the difference.
Yeah. Somebody there has a question, please. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, my name is Bal, and again a question to you, Shruti, on the Visa Direct rails. So from an exporter perspective, right, if he is going to receive payments, right, how convenient it is going to be from, one is from a speed perspective, and second from a cost perspective, because knowing the Visa network fees that get applied, and when you talk about the cross, the international service assessment fees and so on and so forth, typically, in my experience, it has been far more costly and not economical. So has something changed which is driving this? Because this is going to really help a lot of exporters and importers to use this channel.
That's right, sir. So firstly, just want to clarify, the approval that we have received with Yes Bank is for outward as of now. So we will only start right now with outward. Having said which, you're right, we are going to be much cheaper than what you currently would, for example, pay through a SWIFT or a corresponding banking network to send money overseas. We also have a product in India, which is called as a currency cloud. As I said, these are some of the acquisitions that we have done in the past to increase our capabilities, and this is not through a card entity. Currency cloud is actually meant for exporters who want to receive their receivables, maybe hold it for some time, make payments, or get it back into India. It's a product which is widely accepted. It is being used by many fintechs. It's been offered to the clients in India. And yes, sir, it is much cheaper at this point of time.
Yeah. Any threshold on the currency cloud, volumes?
No. So as I said, we are a B2B company. We leave it to our fintech partners to offer that. But it is very well suited for smaller exporters.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great. In the short of time, but I'll just quickly sort of, what I sort of took insight in my memory was sort of, faster speed, transparency, fully, stack compliant, the AI-driven sort of innovation, smarter merchant solutions, right, and a sort of dynamic pricing and a multi-currency, opportunity, right. These are some of the sort of, let's say, outcome of commercial payment 2.0. And with that, sort of, let's say we conclude this session. Thank you, Shruti, Bhakti, and Akshat for your time. Really appreciate. And thank you, GFF, for the opportunity you gave us to sort of share the knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll just take photos.
That was truly engaging and informative. Thank you so much. Requesting everyone on the stage to kindly step ahead for a group picture.